The vibration of my phone on the kitchen island was quiet, but in the silence of 5:30 a.m., it felt like a hammer striking the granite. I set my coffee mug down and picked up the device. The screen illuminated the dark room with a single message from my son, Kevin. "Mom, the plan has changed. We've made our decision. You're not going to Alaska anymore. Amanda wants to have private time with just our family. Hope you understand." I read the words 3 times. My breathing remained steady. I didn't drop my phone and I didn't burst into tears. I simply stared at the screen, letting the reality of the situation settle into my bones. This Alaska cruise wasn't just a vacation. It was a $55,000 reservation I had paid for entirely out of my own pocket. More importantly, it was the final wish of my late husband, Arthur. He wanted me to see the glaciers to rest after a lifetime of hard work and to scatter a small portion of his ashes in the frozen waters. Kevin knew this. Amanda, my daughter-in-law, definitely knew this. I looked around the spacious kitchen of the home I had owned for 30 years. 2 years ago, when Kevin and Amanda complained about rising rent, I let them move in. I thought I was helping my son build a foundation. Instead, I had slowly become a ghost in my own house, relegated to the background, while Amanda redecorated my living room and Kevin nodded along to keep the peace. They thought I was just a tired old woman who would absorb this blow and quietly fade into the background. They assumed I would stay home, watch their dogs, and let them sail away on my dime. I locked my phone screen and placed it back on the counter. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to act. By 7:00 a.m., the house began to stir. I heard the heavy footsteps of Kevin coming down the stairs, followed by the sharp clicking of Amanda's slippers. I remained seated at the kitchen island, sipping my second cup of coffee. Amanda walked in, bypassing me entirely to open the refrigerator. "Kevin, did you remind your mother about the dog's feeding schedule?" she asked, not bothering to look in my direction. Kevin shuffled to the coffee maker, keeping his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. "Yeah, I'll write it down before we leave on Friday. Morning, Mom." "Good morning," I replied, my voice perfectly even. Amanda finally turned around, holding a carton of almond milk. She offered a tight, patronizing smile. "Darlene, I know the text this morning was a bit sudden, but you understand, right? Kevin works so hard. We just really need this time to bond as a core family. Plus, the dogs get so anxious in kennels. It works out better for everyone if you're here." She didn't apologize. She didn't offer to pay me back for the $55,000 I had already spent on the suite, the excursions, and the VIP packages. She just expected me to accept my new role as their unpaid caretaker. Kevin finally glanced up, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to challenge his wife. "We'll bring you back a souvenir, Mom." I didn't yell. I didn't throw my coffee in their faces. I simply offered a mild nod, stood up, and rinsed my mug in the sink. "I'll leave you two to your breakfast," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. I walked upstairs to my home office, closing the door firmly behind me. They thought they had the final say in how my money and my time would be spent. I sat down at my desk and woke up my laptop. I opened my web browser and navigated straight to the cruise line's official portal. I typed in my booking reference number and my password. The screen loaded, displaying the luxurious 3-bedroom suite I had secured 6 months in advance. Under the passenger list, I saw Kevin and Amanda's names right next to mine. They assumed that because the tickets were already booked, the trip was set in stone. But I was the primary account holder. I was the one who had swiped the credit card. I clicked on the reservation settings. There was an option to modify guests, but I ignored it. I scrolled all the way to the bottom and clicked the bold red button that read, "Cancel entire reservation." A prompt popped up warning me that canceling this close to the departure date would result in the loss of my initial deposit, but the remaining $50,000 would be refunded to the original payment method within 3 to 5 business days. I didn't hesitate. I clicked confirm. The screen refreshed. The itinerary vanished, replaced by a simple cancellation confirmation number. Next, I opened my banking app. I navigated to my primary credit card, the one I had added Kevin and Amanda to as authorized users, so they could buy groceries for the house. I reviewed the recent transactions. Just yesterday, Amanda had spent $800 on designer luggage and resort wear. I selected their cards on the screen and hit deactivate. I didn't lock them temporarily. I permanently canceled their access. My money was returning to my account, and the financial faucet they had grown so accustomed to was now completely shut off. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the faint sound of Amanda laughing downstairs. She was laughing on borrowed time. The cruise was handled, but that didn't solve the core issue. I was still living in a house that had been hijacked by my own son and his wife. If I stayed, this disrespect would only continue. I needed a permanent boundary. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a stack of mail I hadn't sorted through yet. Near the bottom was a thick, glossy flyer that had been stuffed in my mailbox a week ago. We buy houses fast. Any condition. Cash offers in 24 hours. Usually I threw these straight into the recycling bin, but today it was exactly what I needed. I picked up my phone and dialed the local number. A man named Rick answered on the second ring. I kept the conversation brief and strictly business. I told him the square footage, the neighborhood, and my timeline. I need to close fast, I told him, preferably by this Friday. Our Friday is tight, but we can do it if the title is clear and you're willing to take a slight discount for the speed, Rick replied. I can be there in an hour to do a walkthrough. Make it 2 hours. The current occupants will be out for work by then, I said. By 10:00 a.m., Kevin and Amanda had left for their respective jobs. At exactly 10:30, Rick pulled into the driveway. He was a straightforward contractor, no nonsense. We walked through the house together. He took a few photos of the roof and the updated kitchen. We sat down at the very kitchen island where Amanda had dismissed me just hours prior. Rick wrote a number on a piece of paper and slid it across the granite. It was lower than retail market value, but it was pure cash, and it meant I could walk away cleanly without open houses or waiting months. I picked up my pen and signed the preliminary agreement. The next 3 days were a masterclass in quiet preparation. Kevin and Amanda were so entirely wrapped up in themselves and their upcoming vacation that they didn't notice the subtle changes happening right under their noses. While they were at work, I packed my most important belongings. I didn't touch the heavy furniture. I only packed my clothes, Arthur's keepsakes, my financial documents, and my jewelry. I moved these boxes directly into the trunk of my SUV parked in the garage. On Wednesday evening, Amanda sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Darlene, the Wi-Fi has been acting up. Did you pay the bill? I took care of my accounts. I replied smoothly, not looking up from my book. I had in fact scheduled the internet, water, and electricity to be disconnected by Friday afternoon. Later that night, I heard Kevin complaining in the kitchen. Hey, Amanda, did the bank send you a fraud alert? My card just got declined at the gas station. Probably just a glitch, Amanda called back dismissively. Just use the joint debit for now. We'll sort it out at the airport. They were utterly clueless. They had spent 2 years relying on my infrastructure to keep their lives afloat, and they had never bothered to learn how any of it actually worked. I walked up to my bedroom and quietly locked the door. I pulled out my laptop and finalized the lease on a beautiful, quiet, one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. The deposit was paid. The keys were waiting for me. Tomorrow was Friday, the day they thought they were leaving for Alaska. Friday morning was a whirlwind of frantic energy. Kevin and Amanda were dragging their brand new $800 suitcases down the stairs, barking orders at each other about passports and boarding passes. I stood by the front door, dressed in a simple sweater and slacks, holding a cup of tea. "All right, Mom, the Uber is outside," Kevin said, out of breath. He handed me a piece of paper. "Here's the vet's number. The dogs need to be walked twice a day. Make sure you don't overfeed them." I took the paper and folded it neatly in half. "I have it handled, Kevin." Amanda threw her designer jacket over her arm and barely glanced at me. "Don't touch the thermostat, Darlene. I set it to an energy-saving mode. See you in 10 days." She walked out the door without a second thought. Kevin lingered for a fraction of a second, looking slightly guilty. "Bye, Mom. Thanks for doing this. Have the trip you deserve." "Kevin," I replied. He nodded, missing the weight of my words entirely, and jogged out to the waiting car. I stood on the porch and watched the Uber pull away, turning the corner and disappearing from sight. The moment they were gone, the quiet of the house settled around me, but it didn't last long. Less than 10 minutes later, the heavy rumble of a diesel engine echoed down the street. A large moving truck, followed closely by Rick's pickup, backed perfectly into my driveway. I finished my tea, set the cup on the porch railing, and walked out to meet them. The real work was about to begin. Rick stepped out of his truck holding a thick folder. "Title company cleared everything yesterday, Darlene. Funds have been wired to your account. Are we ready to empty this place out?" "We are," I said, signing the final closing documents right there on the hood of his truck. The house was officially his. I had hired the moving crew out of my own pocket for one specific task. I directed them upstairs to Kevin and Amanda's bedroom. "Everything in this room, the guest bathroom and the living room, goes into the truck," I instructed the foreman. I had rented a standard climate-controlled storage unit 3 towns over, paid up for exactly 1 month. The movers worked with impressive speed. They broke down the bed frame, boxed up the designer clothes Amanda had bought with my money, and packed away every single item that belonged to them. I moved my dogs into my SUV. They were my dogs anyway. Kevin and Amanda only claimed them when it was convenient for a photo. By 2:00 p.m., the house was completely hollowed out. The curtains were gone. The rugs were rolled up. The only thing left in the echoing kitchen was a single white envelope taped to the granite island. I handed the keys to Rick. "It's all yours." "Pleasure doing business with you, Darlene. My demolition crew starts on the kitchen Monday," Rick said, shaking my hand. I climbed into my loaded SUV, the dogs settled comfortably in the back seat. I pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I drove straight toward my new apartment, leaving the ghost of my past life behind. At exactly 3:30 p.m., Kevin and Amanda stood at the VIP check-in counter at the cruise terminal an hour away from the house. Amanda was tapping her foot impatiently, her passport in hand. The ticketing agent scanned Kevin's barcode. A red error message flashed on her screen. She frowned and typed something into her keyboard. "I'm sorry, Mr. West, but it appears this reservation was canceled on Tuesday." Amanda scoffed, stepping forward. "That's impossible. We're in the owner's suite. Check it again. My mother-in-law booked it, but our names are on it." The agent shook her head. "The primary account holder canceled the entire booking. The suite has already been reassigned to passengers on the wait list." Kevin's face went pale. "Canceled. No, she wouldn't do that. Can we just pay for it now? Put it on my card." He pulled out his wallet and handed the agent the credit card I had deactivated 3 days ago. The agent swiped it. Declined. Amanda snatched the card away. "Use mine," she snapped, handing over her own card. The agent swiped it. Declined. Panic began to set in. They stood in the middle of a bustling, crowded terminal, surrounded by happy families heading off on vacation, entirely stranded. They had no boarding passes, no active credit cards, and no suite. Kevin pulled out his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed my number. It went straight to voicemail. He dialed again. Nothing. Call her, Amanda hissed, her carefully crafted image crumbling into public humiliation. Make her fix this right now. But there was nothing to fix. The foundation they had been standing on had simply been removed. After 3 humiliating hours at the port and a $150 taxi ride paid for with the last of their emergency cash, Kevin and Amanda arrived back at the neighborhood. The taxi dropped them off at the end of the driveway. Kevin grabbed his heavy suitcase, completely exhausted. But as he looked up at the house, he froze. A massive industrial dumpster was parked on the front lawn. The front door was propped open, and 2 men in work boots were carrying out pieces of the living room drywall. "Hey, what are you doing in my house?" Kevin yelled, dropping his bags and running up the driveway. Rick walked out the front door, wiping dust off his jeans. He looked at Kevin and Amanda, then pulled out his clipboard. "You must be Kevin. I'm Rick, the new owner. I bought this property from Darlene this morning." Amanda looked like she was going to faint. "Bought it. She can't sell this house. We live here." "Not anymore, you don't," Rick said calmly, pointing to the kitchen. "She left an envelope for you on the island. I suggest you grab it and clear out before my guys start ripping up the flooring." Kevin pushed past him, his boots crunching on the debris. He grabbed the white envelope from the counter. His hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside was a brass key and a short handwritten note. "Kevin, your belongings are at the Securite Storage Facility on Route 9, Unit 402. The rent is paid for 30 days. After that, it's your responsibility. I took my money back, I took my house back, and I took my peace back. Do not come looking for me." Kevin stared at the note, the reality of his situation crashing down on him. I was sitting on the balcony of my new apartment watching the sunset over the park. The dogs were sleeping at my feet. It was the most peaceful evening I had experienced in 2 years. My phone buzzed on the patio table. It was Kevin. I let it ring 3 times before I finally picked up. "Mom!" His voice was entirely broken, devoid of the entitlement he had carried just that morning. "Mom, what did you do? Where is everything? Where are you?" "I'm exactly where I need to be, Kevin," I said, keeping my voice steady and quiet. "You sold the house. You left us with nothing. Amanda is having a panic attack in the driveway." "Mom, how could you do this?" "I didn't leave you with nothing," I corrected him. "I left you with the exact life you and Amanda built. I just stopped paying for it. You decided I wasn't family enough to go on the trip I paid for, so I decided I wasn't family enough to house you. Mom, please, we can talk about this. Just come back." "There is nothing to talk about. The storage unit is paid for the month. Figure it out." I paused, looking at the travel brochure resting on my table. "I'm booking a solo trip to Alaska next month. I have a promise to keep to your father. Goodbye, Kevin." I hung up the phone. I didn't block his number, but I knew he wouldn't call back. I picked up my tea, took a sip, and watched the sky turn a deep, brilliant shade of purple. The heavy burden I had been carrying was gone, leaving only the quiet freedom I had earned.